Okay, so welcome back to Project Watershed, and we need to go back to ArcGIS Pro. Okay, so please open up your Pro project. All right, and the first thing I want you to do is add via your portal, the Living Atlas. Search for terrain multi-directional hillshade. Okay. And once you find that, drag and drop it over. Okay. It's not going to look as dramatic as mine is when you do that. Now we are going to clip. Okay. And this is one of the main reasons we're back in here is I was working with this, and I have found a way to export these files as TIFF files and with a transparent background. And TIFF files don't have any compression like JPEGs do, so they're much better files. Okay, so make sure that the only thing you are that is excluded from clipping was that hydrography data set. Okay, everything else can be turned off. All right, now check on your terrain multi-directional hillshade and go to symbology. All right, and you're going to see a bunch of little black dots or squares, and that's a color map. Change that to stretch, and the color scheme should automatically go from a continuous black over to the white. If you don't see, if for some reason you get something different, you should be able to find that in here. Okay, just make sure it's black to white and not black to transparency. Okay. All right, now come over to stretch type, and we are going to choose Esri. Okay, and this contrasts the moderate values, which is really what we're after with this hillshade. Okay, and because the hillshade is going to give us all kinds of texture and very fine detail that we're not going to rely on the foundation for. So think of the terrain as like your geological formation, and then the hillshade is the soil and the landforms on top of that. Okay, now the biggie is down here at statistics. Change yours from data set to DRA. Okay, we know that dynamic range what the heck, adjustment that takes into account only what is visible on your screen. And so clipping actually gives us a little extra bonus because it's not taking into account all of the pixels that are outside of our AOI. So we're getting an even better boost that way. Okay, so we are going to export this fella first. All right, so let's come up here to share. Okay, and we're going to export the layout. Okay, so now here's what's changed. We are going to leave it as a PDF. Okay, that's really just the envelope that we're putting our letter in, okay, our file in. Now, let's make sure we're going to the right place. It should be in your rendering folder. And this is going to be called normal map, okay? And that's what they call these in 3D rendering, okay? And then click OK. And then everything else, oh, I'm sorry. Then these are the biggies as well. We do want to remove the layout background, okay? And instead of a JPEG, which compresses the image, we're going to go with an LZW, okay? And this is a TIFF format, and it's uncompressed. So you can see that this becomes grayed out because of that. and just leave all of this alone, okay? And then I'm gonna hit export and pause, and this shouldn't take too long. I think sometimes it just depends on what's going on with Esri servers, and so sometimes it'll take longer than others. But just be patient, and then we will export the terrain in a similar format. Okay, great. Mine only took a little less than 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so that looks really nice. Okay, now we're cooking with grease. All right, let me close out of here. Okay, now back in Pro, let's turn off our multi-directional hill shade, and let's turn on our terrain layer. Okay, remember, make sure that it is clipped. Okay, now I want you to right click on the terrain layer and go over to symbology. Now in here you should see from the if you had done the previous video that we were using these standard deviations, and there's this fella that works for Esri, and he writes about a lot of this stuff, and that's what he uses. But I don't really see why. I'm going to trust my gut on this one, because the whole point of dynamic range adjustment is that you go from from pitch black to the pure white. And so that's what minimum and maximum does. Okay. And I don't know if it does this for you, but for me, it over here on the values, it shows me that the lowest value in this Tennessee regional watershed is about 6 meters below sea level, and the highest level is about 2,000 meters above sea level. So I'm actually going to write those numbers down because I want to put those on my PowerPoint. So please do the same thing. Now remember, we are dealing with meters here, not feet. So this is a very dramatic change in elevation. Now to be 6, you may be wondering, how can you be 6 meters below sea level? Well, the technical term for measuring the elevation of water bodies is called bathymetry. And scientists never measure the surface of the water. They measure the terrain that the water is encapsulated in. Okay, so it's like if you had a bowl of water, they're going to measure the bottom of the bowl. Okay, so somewhere in this Tennessee area, there is a river or a lake that is deeper than sea level. Okay, now sea level is where the ocean, the median level of where the ocean meets the seashore. Okay, and then it all goes down from there. All right, so let's look at exporting this fella, and you should have all of this set up. And again, we've changed this to minimum maximum. So we're going to do the same procedure. We're going to go to export layout. All of this except the name is going to stay the same. So we are going to call this terrain. Okay, now if you already have a terrain map in here, I would like you to overwrite it. I don't like having duplicate files. Okay, if not, just call this guy terrain and hit OK. All right, remove layout background. Output is image LZW. That's the whole reason that we're redoing this. It's going to be a vastly superior quality file. And then I am going to hit export. And then when this is done, save your work, and you can close out of this program.